because today we're going to discuss The Ministry for the Future by Stanley Robinson, which is a gigantic book. It is over 550 pages, 563 pages to be exact. Work of science fiction regarding climate change and what's happening on the Earth to address that problem. And I suspect this is going to be another one of those books that I rather liked and you did not.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this book was 500 pages. Probably could have been 100 pages.
Yes, I agree.
Enormous dumps of it could be legitimate information, but it's in fiction, and you just can't let pseudoscience or whatever kind of infiltrate your mind. So it's just this was like an unbelievable guy who's interested in science and finance, but I don't know, you just can't.
You're skeptical.
I couldn't take him serious at all, to the point where he writes these like mystifying blocks of jargon to kind of entice you into his authority about topics, and you're like, I don't think this guy even knows what he's talking about. So I just blow.
Oh my God! This is
just
we are in opposite positions with Guns, Steel, and Germs, because I was highly skeptical of him. And where does he get this idea? Where does this come from? Maybe common sense, but as far as I could tell, and I didn't do any research, and I don't know, but this guy certainly sounded a lot more legit than your favorite Gun, Steel, and Germs guy.
Yeah, he sounds legit, and talks about interest rates, dropping words like yields and risk profiles, all this like financial speak, which in my last career you have to grow up dodging and swatting away, as for someone who is just trying to fill space with words.
Oh, really?
Oh,
so
my
did
God.
you? Was his stuff not true? Was his stuff what he said about the finance? Because I don't know anything about finance, but the things that he said about the financial markets, or were they false?
Well, I mean, there were points which were like generally true. Like, yeah, we've got a huge crisis, and government can't do it alone. You need the capitalists on board, which is like the whole, the reason why capitalism is like the most effective. But yeah, the winners are going to win big because they're the ones who gambled the most, where they could have just stayed on the sideline. But all his talk about, I mean, he thinks that like blockchain and Bitcoin is like the way we're going to get out of this mess. And as we see today, Bitcoin is like crumbling as a total, pseudo economist's, fantasy. So it's like, it's the same. It's like the same legendary, we all come together and win. That's like, feathered with, econo language and like, it was crazy, because you're reading it, you have to, I'm reading like the minutes from a conference call. Like, what in the hell? Like, why would I want to read this? I feel like I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like is this what he's doing? Like, he knows that to like a random reader or like lay person, like, oh, this is serious business. And I'm like, I think
so. Yes. Yeah. I think some of it is that. So here, let me tell you, I understand your arguments against it. He could have used a good editor, especially toward the end when, like you said, oh, come on, and I was trying to decide why is this book continuing? It could have ended with her retirement. She sees Mary Murphy, the head of the Ministry for the Future, sees progress actually happening after all these years and years and years of work, and it could have ended there, and it goes on and it goes on and on, and I couldn't understand why. And I think he could have used a good editor, and I think that a lot of it is I grew impatient with as well. In the beginning of the book, even when his main thesis is that this is an existential crisis, and yet he's describing the mountains in Switzerland, or he's describing some geographical location. I thought, well, get on with it. Why are you taking time to do this? We're talking about an existential crisis here. I totally get that. He could have used a good editor. I think what he was trying to do is to get us into the world, and I think his editor trusted him too much to and allowed him to do that. Try for us to get into the world, because at certain points I sort of felt like I would know what it would be like to live in Switzerland, somewhat. I really, really could identify with Mary Murphy. She's, younger than I am, but my age and that kind of thing. However, I think what he's trying to do is he's given the people the blueprint for dealing with climate change. He's giving the earth a blueprint for dealing with climate change. And he has to do this via a narrative. And the story has this long arc. And the narrative is the main character, Mary. And so understanding at the high echelons of government and persuasion and diplomacy, what needs to happen in order for climate change to be addressed. And we have all these smaller arcs, these smaller narratives: Frank, the victim of the heat wave, the refugees, the scientists, the other diplomats like Vadim, and then reports from anonymous people, it seems to me, in order to make it personal, because nothing happens until something is made personal, until it touches you. Nothing is ever addressed. So I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to see the power of story, and trying to get people to identify with all these different people that are involved in this problem, and all the people that are affected by this problem, so that a random reader can identify. So that's what I think he's trying to do. But my favorite part of the book were those but were those commentaries that were stuck in. So I think there's like three things going on here. We've got the big arc narrative, we've got the small arc narrative, and then we've got these commentaries stuck in about cognitive errors, about ways of indexing time, those kinds of things. I found those things fascinating. I found those sections of the book worth everything as far as the book is concerned, more worthwhile than the book itself. And I suspect that it is not well received also by me, because it's hopeful, because it has an optimistic ending. And we just can't bring ourselves to believe that.
Yeah, I think that's it's so funny, the optimistic ending. The optimism I took away is that, hey, terrorism works. You have
right. I know.
And even I was like, what are you talking about? So you got these poor, impoverished, devastated countries who, of course, develop radicals. And one of the things where it was one of the early points, I was like, what the fuck? Where terrorist cells get drones that can fly up into the jet engines of airplanes to terrorize people, to stop flying. And it's like, okay, so a drone flies up into the stratosphere, into the exact flight path of a 700-mile-an-hour airplane to... Wait, what? How does it... And where... where do they get it? And the guy's just and again, it's the imbalance of word salad over finance and the Swiss mountains versus so we got we got the drones, we fly them up there and bada boom, end of story.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
And
he
doesn't.
And I'm like, is this for
Yeah.
real? And
Well,
lots
it's
of
science fiction. No,
well,
it's not for real because it's science fiction.
well, that's what I mean. It's like, well, I'm supposed to buy in on your yeah, like on your info dumps about all these other things that academics tackle, and then you can't be bothered to at least dump something about how these drones are just have brought the world to its knees by these impoverished people. Like, what are you talking about? And then
Well,
also,
I don't know if they were impoverished. Remember, I think it's realistic to, and I don't know, so India becomes the model nation, right? They reformulate their entire existence in view of this global change because they suffered that horrible, devastating heat wave in the opening chapter of the book. And it is a pretty good stretch to try and imagine that, oh, yeah, they reformulate the government, they eliminate the caste system, and, they're the children of Kali are going to change the world. But it is not out of the realm of perception that terrorism would become, I forget what the exact saying is, but history is written by the winners, right? And I know that when I was younger, let me see, how can I approach this? Not too many years ago, a movie came out called The Sniper, right? Remember? And he was a hero, right? But when I grew up, snipers were bad. Snipers were sneaky. They sit in their little bell tower and they shoot people unawares. And that's a similar flip. So I didn't have any problem accepting the concept that terrorism, the ends justifies the means idea, would be acceptable to the winners.
yeah, I just mean like I was left confused to like, why does he spend so much time on the pronunciation of Swiss alpine peaks and then can't be bothered with this military grade drone travel destruction system. And another one was how like we got this good idea we're gonna drill into Antarctica and pump water back into it, and then bada boom, it's frozen. And you're like, that wait, what? That's the brilliant idea, is refreezing water? Like, wait, what? And like, yeah, you send it, you just stick it down there, and then yeah, it's all good. Like, wait, what? How? And then
now that's not, you know that he doesn't propose that as a fix to all climate change. The reason why this book had to be so long, I think his view is it's a complex problem that we arrived at over many, many years, and it just sort of growed out of control. And so the solution has to be multifaceted and complex as well. And all that whole Antarctic glacier thing did was slow down the sliding of the glaciers into the ocean and then raising the ocean levels. It didn't fix climate change, at all. And I think that the multifacetedness is the reason why he has all this big arc and small arc and all these small characters that are individually experiencing this and proposing different kinds of fixes for this very complex problem.
Yeah, but I think that that's where I'm like, well, I'm not going to really take any of this seriously, where it's totally balanced towards, no, I'm right about the blockchain, the crypto, about, I'm right about that. Well, but the freezing ice and the drone strikes, no, that's science fiction. I'm like, okay, so you have coverage in this area, but I'm supposed to believe you in this one? And then the biggest one of all was where he just said, so after 10 years of the things working, it's fixed. And so he just flashes forward 10 years and we did it. So, hey, let's all shake hands but anyway, that's only one part. Then I got there's chapters of like one sentence. I just totally turn the page on that, or if it's about an anonymous I and my daughter, and I'm like, okay, don't need this.
Yeah.
This is all meaningless fluff to try to.
Well, it doesn't seem to be any context, and and we as the reader had difficulty putting any of that together. We never did. And the little flights of fantasy, with like, I am a proton, or I am this, the kind of a riddle, little paragraph that's kind of a riddle and get down. So I think what you're saying, and I kind of agree with you, is that this guy has no credibility for you. There's just no credibility.
Well, that's why it's so confusing, where like just his writing style is like, you're trying to like mystify me into just by the verbiage, where I might be interested, but because you're throwing all these things at me, I'm like, I'm not even. It's almost like if someone shows up to an interview and they might be really good, but their necktie is all screwed up, or they just look horrible. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to anything you say. I mean, look at this. I mean, what is this?
He lost credibility. Yeah.
But then there were things that I was taking in, like what was the other one? But I want to say that, the words of I'm a proton, or like, we are the wise elephants, or like, I am history, so do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? It reminded me of when on Star Trek Next Generation, when everyone is forced to listen to Data's poetry. Everyone's like, what the fuck is this? Like, what? And so, and then the other thing is that the imbalance of where he's wasting all this time with my mother was killed in this, but we have to keep surviving. I'm refugee X. And I'm like, you have actual characters. You could develop empathy or background with them. Why are you wasting it on these anonymous people? I don't care about people at all. So it reminded me of
I don't know why he did that. So I think he needed a better editor. Yeah, someone who reined him in a little bit.
It reminds me, like,
you're right.
Like, when maybe I was in high school or elementary school writing about try like dramatic perspectives, like I am a rock. What are the things that a river sees, or what is the smell of the universe? And it's like, what? And it's like, you need to get all this out of here. This is all just like drivel.
Yes. Yeah. I have to agree. I agree. It could have been half the size that it is, and still and tightened up quite a bit. And I really do agree with you with that. But I think there were good things to enjoy, and I called those sections the commentary, where I'm learning things. They're mostly anthropology, I suppose, or psychology, maybe. And so I found those parts very interesting.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, the story. Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing that was just glossed over was the little anecdote of the farmer who does whatever and is given a carbon coin, and they're like, "What do I do with this?" Well, you use that, and it works, and then boom, we're all good. And I'm like, wait, what? Who? So it was. I was like, it goes into the whole, which is a huge rabbit hole of like currency theory, where I have to believe like a government is the only one who can give a currency, because a government enforces that some kind of value is there, where we can take it away, we can give it back, we can make more of it. But this idea of like a unified collection of capitalists make a carbon coin, and it just works, and they can plug it into Amazon and get what they want, and everybody wins, is like, you need that, in my view, like that enforcement aspect, which is why governments are the only ones who can make a sustainable currency.
Except that his thesis is that the governments are at the mercy of the banks, and so Mary's efforts to get the central banks behind this carbon coin was hard fought. And is it possible, again, I admit I don't know anything about finance, but is it possible that Bitcoin didn't work because the banks weren't behind it? And, if we believe capitalism is really run by the money interests, whatever that means, and they're not going to agree or do anything governments want, regardless. I mean, we've witnessed this. I mean, then I think that carbon coin becomes a little bit more credible. We witnessed this in 2008 when the banks were bailed out and too big to fail. The governments do whatever the banks want. I think it's not a far reach to believe that in a capitalist society that the banks or whoever the moneyed interests are the ones that do control things, not governments.
Well, that's the thing. That's the struggle of government versus enterprise, where there's things that government needs. I need this now for stability and order, and then the aristocracy or wealthy are like, well, why would we do that? Because once whatever the war is over or the crisis is over, then you will have exclusive rights, you will have favorable rights, you will have blah 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 rights to this for this amount of time, and that's what they go for. So that's why the 2008 was particularly crazy, because the crisis, you caused it, and now you're not going to help unless we give you total favorable things for after this thing that you helped to do. And they're like, yes. And the government's like,
that's right.
we have no other choice. Yeah, we have to do it. But that's why Rich would finance like wars. Like, well, we're going to go after this country. So once, give us the money, we'll pay the warriors, the actual soldiers, and then you'll get land over there, or you'll get the trade route through there.
You'll get more money somehow.
It's about securing.
You have money. You want more money? Do this.
Yeah, and then if someone else tries to do it, then that person can sue in the courts or in through the legal system of the government. Like, well, you said we get it, so use your military or enforcement to get them out of there. So that's what I think. And it's an enormous topic of currency theory. Like, why does it work? But the writer tries to just paints the story like the farmer works. He says, hey, I think it should be more. And in the end, it all works out.
Yeah.
What?
He was pretty satisfied with what he got. Yeah.
So it was those three things, like drone technology in the hands of devastated radicals, and then freezing ice, and carbon coinage. I'm like, and then meanwhile, you wanted just constantly just hit us over the head with how many Swiss like lakes and mountains, and I'm like, I understand you want to like flaunt your alpine knowledge,
superiority.
So like what?
Okay, well, let me tell you what I have to agree with you as far as the story is concerned. Science fiction has never been my favorite anyway, and because I don't know anything about science per se, then I sort of just gloss over those points. And what mostly interests me, and maybe this is why one of the failings of the book is that I'm more interested in the people and the people's reactions. But I am becoming tired of being proved right again and again and again that every damn book out there is a romance novel. I mean, I was kind of tired of that. But I am more interested in the people than I am the technology or the finance or anything else. So what I found most interesting were these sections that were what I call commentary, and chapter 24 is the first one that I came across. And that is on page 87, and where he talks about cognitive errors. And I just found this fascinating that, we all accept optical illusions. We know that we are fooled by optical illusions, but we can be shown that they are that optical illusions. The cognitive errors, which are the same thing or similar thing as far as logic or brain power is concerned, we don't buy into it. And so what I found so interesting, these cognitive errors that he talks about, and several pages earlier, I quoted to my family, monocausal taxophilia. And I totally understand this. It is the love of single causes for something being wrong, and the inability to see a complex multiple causation that led to this problem. I can't tell you how many times I've done I just read something on Reddit, and it was posting by somebody that this guy just couldn't spell for shit. It was really awful. And somebody in the comments section said, well, that's because they're not studying cursive anymore. Okay, problem solved. That's what it is, that the single, and that single cause. And somebody said, we had a garage sale. How'd the garage sale go? I said, it was terrible. No, nobody came. And somebody said, well, that's because you didn't have signs out. Well, I never have signs out. So that's not it. It's that I love that, having a name to put to that. Why do you oversimplify and say there's only one cause? Another cognitive error he talks about is anchor bias. You want to stick to your first estimate or what you have been told. You're anchored there and you're not going to change your mind. I meet that again and again and again as well. Ease of representation is another one that says you think an explanation you can understand is more likely to be true than one you can't. And well, that must be true because I can understand it. I just think these are they should be pointed out more and more and more. And the fact is, on the next page, he says that these errors are committed by everyone. They tend to in the same direction of error. They are independent of personal factors of the test takers, and they are incorrigible. Everybody falls into these traps and errors and logical illusions. And I found that really fascinating because of what I've witnessed over the years and not had a name for. And I'm glad to hear that there's a name.
Yeah, I have chapter 24 note says another mini lesson on cognitive illusion where you think something is correct, but hey, whoops, it's actually wrong. Jesus Christ, this book sucks.
You have anchor bias. 87 pages ago, you decided this book sucked and you're not changing your mind. Didn't you find the opening chapter with the heat wave extremely compelling, though?
Oh, yeah. He's just, there's bodies everywhere. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And I'm just flying through, is he's going to do nothing with this guy? I was like, why am I reading? I'm reading text messages between board members. What? Again, it was so imbalanced. What are you doing? Where it reminded me of people who say that phrase, oh, he's playing 4-dimensional chess. And I'm like, which means this is too confusing for me to understand, but hey, it looks something is something here. And I'm like, wow, you wrote this compelling first chapter, and then you're just what are you doing with what the hell are you doing with all these non-characters and text messages? So I think I was meant to be mystified, won over, enticed by the breadth of his writing prowess, but instead I was mystified another way by just being like, what are you doing? I was alternatively mystified by this. I can't believe this is a book. Someone published this.
Unpublished, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. And you may be right. He may have been attempting to wow you. I think he's trying to make it personal for everyone. I think he's also trying to touch on the complexity of the problem. And I think he's trying to maybe create a sense of, verisimilitude is what they call in literature, that reality. And so that if he can describe these lakes accurately geographically, then people will find him credible. And that's that's kind of a real thing. But to tell you the truth, maybe it should have been a short story and it should have ended with Frank. I mean, what happens to Frank? He just kind of wanders through life because of his PTSD. But yeah, a more skilled writer or psychologist might have been able to do something else with that. I don't know. I think you're right. You're right. The first chapter was extremely extremely compelling. And then there's just a lot of oatmeal in the middle, and not a good ending, because it was beyond it. It was beyond the idea of believable.
Yeah, like, well, I think if I were to guess, I think this guy is like a socialist or even like communist theorist. Just the way how much it was emphasized, how like Frank became a traumatized murderer, one of which was just hitting someone in the head. But he was rehabilitated thanks to the elevated and modern prison system of Switzerland. He just hits you with, he just keeps demonstrating that, like this is how it should be. And what was the other thing? I forget.
I have to agree with everything. You've said. He's a science fiction writer. He's got a bestseller called the Mars Trilogy, New York 2140. So he's in 2008 he was named Hero of the Environment by Time magazine. So this must be a common area that he explores. Yeah, I can't fault you. The big selling point on the cover of this book is that it's one of Barack Obama's favorite books of the year. And he, of course, wrote The Audacity of Hope. So it's a hopeful book. I knew somebody gave it to me and recommended I read it because I was particularly down in the dumps with the state of the world. And I have to say, having to slog through this didn't really set my mind in a better place. But I am trying to see it as a potentially optimistic and potentially world-saving effort. How about that?
Yeah, I'm more pessimistic from it because of it. Because
oh God.
Yeah, he's just exploiting he's selling books just by mystifying people. I mean, it's like it's popular. Like I saw Elon Musk like 15 years ago in like Palo Alto or something. He was talking about something, and he was a little bit famous. He was only in charge of like one company or something. But,
like TED Talks or something like that?
No, it was just a super small. It was at like a law firm, and I just went to. It wasn't even like sold out or people like getting in the door. But yeah, he was. I don't know what he was talking about, but I remember thinking like, he wasn't that impressive. He was just another typical CEO, like, dipshit, just hyping up whatever. And then he became this just like world figure of just like the savior of humanity. And now we see he just mystified everyone. Now we see he's just a, just an asshole who just wants to control.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either.
And that's why, Bezos kind of did it right. He's like, okay, it's starting to turn against me. I need to get out of here. And he just like stepped behind the curtain because people, they want that brilliant, smooth talking person just to like, I don't know, just like win them.
I think
over.
They just want him to talk about it. I think they just want him to talk about it. I think they want to boost him up so they can tear him down. And I do blame the media for a lot of that. Although he's his own worst enemy. He doesn't have, I don't know if he has any credibility left either. I don't know. I don't comment on Elon Musk. I don't want to give people like him much oxygen.
But you said
anything else that you...
Well, you said about the romance thing. That was another just like, my God, does this guy have a producer who's like thrusting on him? You got to add some kind of love story at the end. I mean, come on. What kind of movie are we making here? Well, we're not making a movie. We're making a book. Oh, but I should put that in? Okay, so Mary gets a freaking boyfriend that was another thing. Yeah, Zeppelin technology having a renaissance. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, people are gonna go back to what? It was,
and go back to a slower pace. But she takes the sailing ship across the ocean and got all kinds of work done. She justified it by all kinds of work done. So there's, I know. I think he's trying to give us a positive message, a blueprint for how it could work. But I don't think it ever will work. But I think it's kind of. I think parts of the book were. Did you like anything? Did you like anything about it? No, you didn't. Nothing. Did you like? So I'll tell you the other section.
I liked feeling right when he loads you up with all this finance knowledge and just talking about the discount rate. Oh, these assholes, and they care about the discount rate. What's the discount rate? Don't worry about it. But it's just like, oh well, it must be something. I got to remember that. And then the final settling of the deal, the closing of the deal, is Mary like standing up, putting her hands on the table, saying, "Look, this is our last chance, so you better get on board." And they do. So never mind all the financial footwork and balancing of accounts. It's literally one assertive lady just persuading a room full of bankers to do something, and that is just not. They don't do that. They only do something if there's some reward down the road. They have to be that way.
Yeah. Don't forget, she's a diminutive Irish middle-aged woman. Don't forget, who's got a tragedy in her past, by the way. Which I'm starting to dislike this book intensely. But I do. I still think I like the commentary section. I really do. I really like the commentary section.
What's the commentary sections? What is that?
The commentary sections, well, one of them, that's what I call these chapters that he puts in about, for instance, these cognitive errors. And another one is chapter 30, where he's talking about how we divide the past into periods. We could divide them by technology, call them the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, Industrial Age. We can divide them by geological ages, the Ice Age, etc. We can divide the past by dynastic separation, Roman Empire, Arab expansion, stuff like that. So I think that it's important. I often wish that I could have a giant timeline so I could see what was going on in the world. When Shakespeare was writing his plays, what was going on in Asia and Africa and that kind of thing. So I think that this was useful to me because one method of dividing the past into epochs is not necessarily the only method. There's different ways of looking at it, and it depends on what your interest is, and that so therefore everything is subjective. And I found that relieving, and I found that interesting because I have to say I often feel ignorant, like I'm ignorant of financial stuff. And so I'm always feeling that I'm the one that's at a loss. But in fact, things are complicated. It's not simple. Everything is kind of difficult. And so I'm going to stop feeling so ignorant and sort of celebrate what I do know.
Yeah, well, that sounds like you need to pick up another Jared Diamond book.
Oh, God. No, before you go off on another book.
No, but that's what he does. He looks at the world is too long and too big, so let's look at example sets of like collapses of civilization. Like what happened? We can know these people were here for 500 years or whatever. And that means in those days, if people lived on average like 40 or even like 50 years old, that's like X number of generations. So like, what the hell happened? And they theorize it could have been the weather. We have some things that happened. And that's why the Guns, Germs, and Steel one is kind of three mini ones together. Like technology booms disease booms, and I guess technology, guns and steel are one, but like how these significant turning points either propelled one civilization in one direction or just totally crashed another one into a wall. And so that's how he writes. He wants to write history. Never mind the morality of like, oh, it was their fault. Well, it's like, well, they had these animals first. Yeah, that's lucky for them. Or they found this weapon first. They had this weapon. Or he looks at that too. He goes like, well, what if they showed up against these people? It's like they were just lucky that Spain showed up with guns and steel armor against Americans who had literally nothing, like not even like clothing. It was the most easy to win. So it's like he just tries to stack these components into the case of like, yeah, of course that's what happened. And then his other one, Collapse, is really interesting. It's like why did this simple one shut down? Why did this middle one break down? Why did this really complex one collapse? So he goes like step by step.
Interesting. Well, anything that gives us a better understanding of how systems develop, work for a time and collapse, I think is useful. I think that's understanding systems and how people come to create them. I think is useful. So this was I'm trying to see this as a positive thing, but I totally get all your issues with it, and I understand she's an unlikely hero, but she is the hero of the story, this Mary Murphy, and it's nice to see a woman be a hero for a change. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, but I felt good. I have come a long way in my reading thanks to the podcast, thanks to my new, I read on computer and smartphone and tablet, and I can kind of keep notes on all devices. So it's like syncing plus digital reading plus online libraries. I'm like, I've come enough where I can have a firm opinion of this writer. Like, this guy I don't like, I don't recommend, I don't believe him. And I'm even theorizing about the economics of it. Like, look, man, people are worried about the future, so you should really write a future book about, throw some sad stories in there, throw in some whatever crypto blockchain, just mix it up and people will buy it. That's literally what I think is this guy's campaign someone told him, like, this is big, you should get in on this. You can put a 900 pages together.
Almost 560. Yeah. He's not a great, it's interesting that I'm not sure why is this popular? Is this he's a best-selling author? Is this, flying off the shelves? I don't know. It reminds me a bit of Outlander, and that is, she's not a very good writer, but for some reason she speaks to her public, or she has a strong public, sort of like Dickens. Dickens wasn't that well. He was a more compelling writer, but he got paid by the word. So, we're not looking at fantastic literature here. We're just looking at someone prolific. So that might be what's going on here. I don't know.
But this guy's name is Kim, but it's a guy, I'm pretty sure. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is Kim. Kim Stanley Robinson.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And I saw something online about him, and I was gonna, bookmark it, and I don't think I ever did. The interesting thing about this, I found the first chapter very, very compelling. And here in the United States, or in California, we were going through a heat wave at the current time that I started reading this. However, before and after that heat wave that I experienced personally, what I have seen as sort of the focus of climate change are these mega storms that are occurring. Even I was surprised that he focused on a heat wave being one of the turning points, because these tornadoes and hurricanes that are occurring in the United States are absolutely devastating, and they seem to be more frequent than any heat waves.
Yep.
But also, I think the book is important because we are at a state. I think he said several times in the book, every nation on earth agreed to this Paris Agreement, and no one is meeting the goals that they all set themselves. So we are like Greta from wherever she's from. We're all frustrated by the fact that no changes are occurring with this, what's termed an existential threat over and over and over again.
Yep. I think, yeah, it's not, that's people want what they want and they got what they got. So you have to it has to be everyone collectively making personal choices, like don't have a car. Hey, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
I ride a bicycle.
That's
or
right.
walk. Don't fly all the time. Yep. I don't do that. And so, but yeah, you can't just expect everyone you can't, yeah, that's why, yeah, it is kind of meaningless. We're all going to try to do this thing and we can't, and if we do it, we feel better than others who didn't. And if we don't do it, well, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's no system in place for any kind of incentive, and there's no system in place for any kind of punishment for governments or nation states or oil companies, for that matter, that don't comply. It's sort of like these intractable problems that we have in the United States. Climate change is certainly one of them. Gun problems are certainly another one. And so, at one point, there was this passage, and I moved the bookmark that I had, which is on page 448, and it's when Tatiana gets murdered. And to tell you the truth, I didn't remember who this character was, but I guess she was a good friend of Mary's. I don't remember. It was a big tragedy, but I don't remember that.
Yep.
Anyway, Tatiana, the paragraph reads, Tatiana, their tough one, their warrior, her brother in arms. Why they say brother? Why didn't she say sister? They killed the good ones, Mary thought bitterly, the leaders, the tough ones, and then dare the weaker ones to pick up the torch and carry on. Few would do it. The killers would prevail. Now, this next section here really made me sit up and take notice. This was how it always happened. This explained the world they lived in. The murderers were willing to kill to get their way. In a fight between sociopathic, sick, wounded, angry, fucked up, wicked people and all the rest of them, not just the good and the brave, but the ordinary and the weak, the sheep who just wanted to get by, the fuckers always won. And I really paid attention to this because it's absolutely true. The criminals or the bad people or the thieves or the murderers, they are, the innocent victims and people that don't do that far outnumber those bad people. And yet we are held hostage to them. And we all live in fear. And we want to, I just read a phrase the other day that said, we want to take back our safety. As a woman, I know that it's open season on women and I can't, go anywhere at night. It's like as if, a curtain is drawn down and I have to stay inside now because I'm so afraid. It's ridiculous that the majority have to be afraid of the minority. And it's the same situation we have in the United States with so many things that are wrong, including gun violence.
Yep.
Anyway, I got on my high horse there because I just was really identified with that particular phrase. She was upset and she spoke her mind. They always win. The bad guys, even though they're fewer, always win. And I have to say that I didn't really see the Swiss boosterism as strongly as you did, but I think you're absolutely right. So throughout the book, I was wondering, what is up with this Ganymede, with this statue of Ganymede? Why is there such an emphasis on that? And, this was a mythical creature, a young man that Zeus took up to heaven to be his cupbearer, which of course means, he had sex with him. And I don't understand why the emphasis on this particular statue in Zurich kept getting emphasized. So I looked it up. And this particular statue, Ganymede, in Zurich, was put in place or was commissioned in 1942. Art historian Heinrich Wolflin wanted to donate a figure to the city of Zurich. And his provisos were it had to be a male figure, since Zurich had many female figures already. It had to be strict form. I think that means realistic, I think. And it had to be, and the architectural framework must be definite. And so it was donated finally in 1952, but he commissioned it, I guess, in 1942, which was the year Switzerland introduced impunity for homosexuality. And that's who Ganymede is. And so I'm thinking, again, it's subjective. Why this emphasis on the Ganymede statue? I think it's just to make it realistic. So he's got, go back to this central point, this statue. It doesn't matter that it's Ganymede, it just happens to be. But overemphasizing this statue leads, what is this conclusion then?
Yeah,
why?
It's like, that's a typical, I don't know, it's like a tactic of someone who wants to be persuasive. They'll just like pummel you with true things that are esoteric and progressive that you can't even to question or be like, why does that have to do with anything? Puts you in a position of like, what are you, you didn't know about that, and what you don't like that, and so you just shut up and let some, like, that's what, it's so annoying of a pontificating
yes,
person.
Elon Musk.
Oh, it's just like, you just can't even like bear that type. It's like, okay, like it's rhetoric. This whole book is like rhetoric. It's not even a story. It's just let me do my sophistry on this enormous topic that other experts know better than me.
I agree. The story should be frank, really, and it's not. He just languishes and lives. Or at the very, very end, here's this woman, I think was the woman who was his wife from the refugee camp. She spent so many years in a refugee camp. There's a story, but it's a wasted life. She said it wasn't because they took care of each other. But, rather than focus on Mary, who just managed to convince these people by pounding the table like Nancy Pelosi, it's, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I hate this book.
Well, they're just better experts you have to save your mind space for, like Jared Diamond or Siddhartha Mukherjee, who just...
Oh, there was something interesting about that, because do you remember in the Mukherjee's book, when they start talking about the theories of cancer, and he said, the ancients didn't understand cellular biology, but they did know about hydraulics. And that is why they came up with these tumors, the excess black bile, yellow bile, choler, and phlegm, right? So he said they did know that, and that's on which they base their theory, because they're known knowledge, right? So one of the things in this book, one thing that did stand out to me was he said Freud's image or metaphor or time period for his understanding of the human mind was the steam engine. Build up, explosion, release. And I just thought that was fascinating also, because of course you come up with a theory with something that's familiar to you, And Freud was probably thinking, here's this new technology. Yeah, I can see a metaphor here for explaining how the human mind works. Because as I was figuring how I was going to discuss this with you, and I knew you didn't like it, and a part of the reason why you don't like it, and part of the reason why I don't like it, is because it's so wide, such a wide burst of everything. But it reminded me of trying to teach English. And you cannot focus on anything, any one thing. You cannot focus on grammar because you have to look at idioms. You have to pay attention to, other things. You have to pay attention to vocabulary, listening skills. So you have to have this multi-pronged approach. And that's why, ESL teachers are the kings and queens of the Xerox machine, because they pick a little bit out of here and a little bit out of there, make this, make up the book as they go along. And this is sort of like what I envisioned here. That's the metaphor that I saw, something that I'm familiar with, placing on my understanding of this book. Ta-da!
Yeah, this book reminded me of the trend of appeal of CEO, smart, scholarly-ish. I don't know, like Musk or whatever. How it's like people want. So this guy will figure it out. This guy knows something. I don't know. I know it. My boss used to say this. It was. He would say it jokingly, but he knew that it's how you win over this type of people, or it just was his way. So we'd leave a meeting, and it's some stupid game or some app, and they have to say why theirs is totally different. We got that one right. Sure, they got way more users, but ours is totally different. And actually, it's exactly the same. And so they try to say how they're so differentiated, the market is big enough, blah, blah, blah. And my boss would say at the end, he's like, well, I don't know exactly what you're saying, but I like the way you're saying it. And and that would always get a laugh. And so, it's like that thing. It's like, it feels good. You're something here, and that's something.
There's something here. I don't know what it is, but I know there's. Yeah, exactly. I like the way you talk. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, all right. That we can retire Kim Stanley Robinson forever, and I will never have to be bothered by reading another one of his gigantic tomes.
Yep. Well, we're right on time for my pick, and this is going to be a good one. It's in the history category again, but you said you want to know about things like finance and, what the hell's going on. And so the one I'm picking is called, let me get the title right, The Pixar Touch, The Making of a Company. This is by one of my favorite authors, although I've only read his other book, which is that Love and Hate in Jamestown. His name's David A. Price. He wrote that excellent history about the colonists coming from England and surviving. So he went from colonial America to early 2000s or 90s California, about Steve Jobs, who had been kicked out of Apple, John Lasseter, who was fired from Disney as an animator, and Ed Catmull, who was turned down a job as a teacher at Cal Arts, and then another guy who was fired as a head researcher for Xerox at Palo Alto. So all these different executives and imaging and animating and creative people came together to make Pixar, which I've already read. I read the first intro, and he just grabs you right from the start. He says, they all knew that computer animation was the future. No one was doing it right, and let's see, where is it? By 2004, Pixar movies was 45% of Disney's operating income. So half of all movie profits were from Pixar.
Wow.
And
that's A Bug's Life and all those. A Bug's Life and
you think of
Disney
as
Inc. that kind of thing. Yeah.
Disney's this movie company, and now half of our profit is by this other group that we kind of work with.
Yeah.
And so they were in crisis, and it has a legendary Steve Jobs, which people don't know.
I didn't know that.
Only he was kicked out of Apple, then he like muscled his way back in. And
I did know that.
So this should be a good one, talking about risk and capital and actual entrepreneurism and risk and creativity. So usually, and this is totally Silicon Valley, right in the hometown, but somewhat unknown because you always think about eBay and Google and whatever.
Oh, actually,
Amazon.
Pixar's in Emeryville, right?
Yeah,
Pixar's in Emeryville. Yeah, really hometown.
He might have written this book to blow the doors open on how everybody is worshiping all these other companies, but the real hidden like meteor was Pixar, which is just a household name now, but at the time they went from like maybe totally nothing to revolutionizing movie and TV and like everything.
I remember when A Bug's Life came out and Michael said, look at this. The picture was he was really, and I love the Pixar movies. They're interesting. Yeah.
So
okay, the Pixar touch. What's his first name?
David A. Price.
Okay.
Trusted author.
Trusted author. And I think you still have Love and Hate in Jamestown here, don't you? I think it's still here. Unless you took it home. Did you take it home?
I took it.
Okay. I started to read that. I didn't finish it, but I did start to read it. Okay. All right. So enough with Kim Stanley Robinson.
Yep.
We have a new bookstore in San Leandro, so I can probably go and get the Pixar touch there.
What the
Washington.
heck? Why is there a bookstore there? Where is it?
I don't know. It's on Washington, just before you go under that tunnel to go to like Orchard Supply. That you're not Orchard Supply anymore. It's still OSH, but it's Outdoor Supply Hardware. They opened up a little new bookstore, only new. They don't have used books, unfortunately.
Is there also like a covered wagon store next to it or anything?
No, there is not. Well, the cops are coming to get you, Joe.
Oh.
This concludes.
Yep, I'm sure this will be a book I'll buy. I'll buy the actual copy as well. I'll bet a $10 on it.
Okay. Because I make notes in the book. I'm old school. I know you're totally embracing the technological age and taking notes and all that stuff, but I am not a good typist, and I am a much better marker in the book.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Better luck next time, Kim Stanley,
whatever. All right. See you next time with